Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm here today with special guest Professor Bart Kay, expert in physiology and nutrition. We're going to be discussing Bryan Johnson's, the tech guru, tech CEO, and his anti-aging efforts to live to 100 and something rather. So what I've done here on the screen, as you'll see, I've put into note form his daily meals, supplement and training plan. And who else is better to go through it than us to talk about what crap he's putting into his body right now? So I'm going to get Professor Bart Kay's take on it as an expert in this field. So here we've got his daily meals. So he actually names his meals different things for whatever reason, just to make it generic, I guess. The first meal is a super veggie, which is lentils, broccoli, cauliflower, mushrooms, garlic, ginger, lime, cumin, apple cider vinegar, hemp seeds, and extra virgin olive oil. Prepared using probably slower cooking methods, nothing to burn and cause AGs and I imagine ALEs. What do you think initially about this? I mean, from a glance, it looks like a low carbohydrate, low protein, moderate-ish, lowish fat kind of diet. I mean, is there actually any nutrition in any of these things up here?
Right. In terms of that first meal, the super veggie, it says a meal containing, and then it lists a bunch of things, every single one of which is plant-based.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your first problem. Human beings are not designed to gain nutrition from plants. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. As such, those things will all contain plant-based toxins, anti-nutrients, etc., that in our estimation will absolutely lead a person to a higher probability of a problem at some point. None of those ingredients are the answer to anything, except what should human beings never eat? So that's a good start, Bryan, isn't it? Not a single
you must
bit of
chuck
meat
in the
there.
wrong stuff.
Yeah.
This meal is not going to do anything for you guys. Probably going to give you an upset stomach. And it'll probably come out the other end. Now, speaking about coming out the other end, we've got here a nutty pudding. I used to plant a few nutty puddings back in the day when I was eating a very species inappropriate diet. Included, I didn't eat nuts that much, but things like berries, other ingredients. Basically it's a sloshed up bowl of like oats and things and berries. We see the raw vegan experts talking about, in a big sludge. Any thoughts on that one?
Well, again, my first comment there would be it says and other ingredients, but given what we've seen above and below, I would suggest other ingredients would also include other plant materials. So nuts are a plant material, and they're one of the more toxic plant materials that a human being can possibly eat. Lectins, for example, can be a real issue. Berries are generally fairly innocuous, it has to be said. However, berries should be something that you have occasionally, not something that's part of your ongoing everyday carry-on. And then it says that these nuts and berries are part of his carefully crafted diet based on scientific evidence for optimal nutrition. No, they're not. No, that's a false statement. There is no science underpinning any such thing anywhere in the literature. That's rubbish. Sorry about that, boys and girls. Human beings are supposed to eat meat and animal fat, not plants. That's what the science tells us, the actual science.
It seems like they're just extrapolating from maybe plant extracts which do one thing in a petri dish or in a rodent model.
Exactly.
But ignoring what happens downstream, all the extra stuff.
Exactly that. It sounds to me like Bryan is singing off the Vagoon song sheet, hymn sheet, which so I've heard of Bryan. People have asked me to do videos about Bryan. I haven't got around to it. I haven't even looked into Bryan before this recording session right now. This is the first time I'm seeing what Bryan is doing. It's clear that some Vagoonerized turd has whispered in Bryan's ear, and he hasn't had the wherewithal to sense check and cross check what's been said, and he's taken that on board as being underpinned by science. No, it isn't. No.
It does get much worse. It goes a bit Thomas DeLaury sort of with,
oh God,
I'm going to take this compound, this supplement. You'll see it shortly, but
All right.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on these three meal variations that he's put across here, do you think there's an outstanding plant antinutrient or toxin that is just everywhere that everyone just needs to get rid of? Because some of these things, I know you just said about the berries being somewhat more appropriate than the other things. Out of all these things, nuts and berries are the worst things for me to eat. If I eat a handful of berries, my stomach swells out 4 inches.
Okay.
So some individuality, I guess, but
Oh, yeah,
is it
sure.
lectins, gluten, fiber? Is it oxalates?
In terms of berries, it'll probably be a reaction in you to the fiber, the skins, I would imagine, something in there, possibly an anthocyanin that you're sensitive to, as a guess. Because the only other things I can think of, really, that you'll find in berries is a bit of fructose, a bit of glucose, not very much, some water, and some fiber. Now, maybe it's the fiber that's causing you an issue. It could be the fiber, it could be the anthocyanins. It's unlikely in the first instance immediately to be the water or the fructose glucose that's causing the bloating. But it's a good point, well made, Jonathan, that there is individuality, and there are some people who absolutely can't have some things without a problem. Yeah, it's not. This is not looking like it's going to be something that's going to help Bryan get past, well, 80, let alone 100 and something already.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing about the fiber intake. It seems to be the one for me. It's all fibrous foods mess me up, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, well, that'll be what it is then in your case, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he consumes a precise, very accurately, carefully managed and measured 1,977 calories a day with what looks like apparently, how much is that? 2 pounds of vegetables a day, basically. 2.5 pounds a day of vegetables.
Wow.
So probably more than what you eat of meat, Bart, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, let's cover that statement because there's a couple of problems with it. Number one, Johnson does no such thing in terms of consuming a precise amount of calories. It's impossible for two reasons. Number one, you cannot accurately measure calories. There is no way for you at home, boys and girls, to measure the calories you are so-called consuming. Why? Well, because the calories listed on labels of things are allowed to be out by 20% plus or minus. Secondly, not all calories provide the same amount of so-called energy. It really depends very much on how those calories are made up in terms of the exact form of matter that those so-called calories consist of. For example, you will see on the label of any foodstuff you like that carbohydrates are listed at 4 kcals per gram, and you'll find protein is listed at the same value. They are not the same value. You do not get 4 kcal of energy from consuming protein. So that's the first problem with it. The second problem with it is you cannot consume calories. It is a physical impossibility. Calories are a measurement of heat energy and nothing else, explicitly defined as such, measured as such. That's what they are. They are a measurement of heat energy, and that is made manifest by photons. Photons have zero rest mass, ergo they weigh nothing and cannot be brought to rest in any relative frame of reference. You cannot consume a calorie. It's impossible. So, sorry about that. And 70 pounds of vegetables a month, my goodness. My goodness. Good luck with that.
Poor toilet bowl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not to mention his poor gut. Think about the band's gut, never mind the Dalton. Whew.
Well, he's got a healing protocol here with for his gut lining, which is 25 grams of collagen peptides.
Yep.
That's something, I guess it replaces what he might be losing from collagen, maybe. What do you think about some of these things like the creatine, collagen, dark chocolate,
right.
Oil?
Okay, I have no problem with somebody taking collagen peptides. 25 grams doesn't seem over the top there, depending on what kind of collagen peptides they are, the quality of them, all of that. Let's say that's fine. Just why not give them that? A person that consumes vastly too much collagen will subject themselves to potential other problems. However, because excess collagen breaks down to oxalate, doesn't it? So you want to watch that. 2.5 grams of creatine daily. Is he weight training?
Yeah, he does quite a bit. He does about 35 different exercises each day.
Probably too many. Okay. The creatine plus or minus, it may or may not be doing him any good whatsoever. This diet also includes 15 grams of 100% dark chocolate. Well, okay. Again, that's another oxalate bomb at least. And, you know, the benefits, so-called, of dark chocolate. This is what you were talking about earlier, Jonathan, with reductionism, taking something out of its context in the real world and saying, well, look, this here dark chocolate contains antioxidants, for example. Well, yeah, but it also contains oxalate. And does the oxalate offset any reductionist view of this has got good stuff in it, so therefore it's good? No, I don't think so. Right. And 30 milliliters of extra virgin olive oil. Right. I wouldn't touch oil with a barge pole from 10 feet, let alone put it in my diet. There is no place in the human diet for oils extracted from plants. None at all. Not a single gram ever. So I wouldn't be doing any of those things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the dark chocolate, that makes me manically depressed. If I have any dark chocolate especially, I eat it, then I almost dread eating it. I'm like paranoid. I'm like, give it an hour or two, and I have a banging headache, and I feel like the worst I've ever felt in my life. So I avoid it like hell. It's another one of those weird ingredients for me. I just don't tolerate it at all. The olive oil will just run straight through me as well, probably. So
yeah,
but interestingly. Yeah, I mean, interesting on Thomas Lauer interview he did with Bryan Johnson. He's saying that extra virgin olive oil was actually the best intervention someone could do for their health in terms of their diet.
Rubbish.
I was like, really? Probably not.
Absolute rubbish.
And he gets up to his artificially driven wake up time at 4:30 a.m. So that could be middle of the night, pitch black, or it could be when the sun's out, I don't know, and completes 35 different exercises. And he undergoes a load of scans, MRIs, tests, and pricks and stabs and jabbies every day, by the sounds of it. Yeah. What do you think about this kind of like tracking, measuring, and precise waking up times, you know?
Obsessive, compulsive, unnatural, and probably unhealthy in the long run, actually. Would be my estimation of that. Plus, most of the measurements taken will be of no value prognostically or as a gauge on really anything of value at all. This is clearly a bloke with too much money, too much time on his hands, not enough actual useful stuff to do, who clearly seems to lack the education to be discerning as to what's good for him, most likely, and what's most likely to be very, very bad for him, in fact, I would suggest.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, his supplement regime isn't written down, but basically I struggled to find an up-to-date one, but I can assure you it is something like 80 to 100 different capsules or tablets or gummies each day. I mean, Bart, I know you use Cerule products. I mean, how many capsules do you have in a day?
In terms of the number of different products I take in from Cerule on a daily basis, 1, 2, 3, 4, between 4 and 6 products, depending on what's going on at the time. Yeah. So I have the stem cell release agent, the anti-inflammatory, the blood flow optimizer, collagen peptides, and a rehydration, largely magnesium glycinate-based product. Sometimes Pim slips me an NMM tablet, which is not a Cerule product, but whatever, I'll swallow it because I don't believe it to be likely to be problematic, at least.
Mm.
And that's it in terms of what I take additional to food. None of those things are actually nutrient-based. They are all nutraceutical in nature.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what Brian's taking any more than you do, but if he's taking 80 to 100 different tablets, it's almost certain that most of them are things that are supposedly short in a person's diet. The issue with that, for me...
Resveratrol.
Okay, well, there's an example. That's not a nutrient. That's supposedly a nutraceutical. However, is it a good idea to take resveratrol ongoingly? I don't personally think so. Our mTOR system operates the way it operates because it's designed to operate in a certain way. And messing with that may or well have knock-on effects that are not desirable, perhaps. I guess time will tell, but at the end of the day, let's say Brian lives to 150 out of all of this, which I doubt. But even if he did, that would be N equals 1 Brian. We don't have a control Brian. We don't have an genetically identical Brian who didn't do what Brian is doing, but did absolutely everything else exactly the same in his life to compare. So even if he did live to 150, it wouldn't prove he was right. It would prove that what he did for himself achieved the goal that he was looking for. Whether he did that in the most effective way or not, we'll never know. Yeah. It looks to me like his protocol is not one I'd be interested in getting anywhere near trying to emulate personally.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, if anyone's watching this and they're wondering, why you having a pop at Bryan Johnson? He's a nice guy. He's trying to live for longer. It's not so much that. People can do what they want with their own money in their own home. I don't care. The problem is he's saying this is a blueprint, as in this is a guide, this is a suggested prescription to follow. And I understand he's trying to narrow it down. He's trying to refine his works, his scans, and see what does and doesn't work and is or isn't effective. But I'm amazed after all these years of doing it, maybe 1 to 2 years of doing it, all this money invested, he's still piss-arsing around having fucking dark chocolate and nuts and seeds.
Yeah.
How has he not stumbled across the carnivore diet, and what, if not, why not?
Well, look, it looks very clear that Brian already was or has been influenced by one of these demented vegan fuckknuckles. Because if you look at what he's eating there, it's all plants. I would suggest this boy has probably been sucked in by the vegan ideology, in which case he will be absolutely divorced from reality. Again, not a pop at the man himself personally. I've never met him. I've got nothing against him. I'm reacting to what you've put in front of me in terms of what you're telling me Brian's doing, Jonathan. And from what I've seen, I wouldn't be interested in remotely emulating that. For no other reason, because he's clearly consuming a plant-based diet, which is absolutely not the ideal diet for a human being, demonstrably.
Sure.
So in that respect alone, his plan to live to 100 and whatever is not the optimal plan right there, because a plant-based diet is demonstrably destitute in terms of required nutrients for human beings ongoingly. It will cause a problem sooner or later.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I think we'll wrap this segment up here. I think what people seem to forget is as much as we always say the same thing, it's because, like you said before, the messaging always remains the same. We have a huge ethical, moral obligation to make sure we put out the correct information of what is optimal. If we said so yourself before, 100% carnivore diet, best case scenario, 95%, 90%, whatever you adhere to. You like some berries, like a beer here and there with your friends, go for it. But that's your own choosing. You weigh it out. I
don't have any friends though, Jonathan. I just have the berries by myself.
No acquaintances.
Well, Herm and 2 dogs live here.
Yeah.
I see them sometimes.
Company.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm allowed out my room sometimes just for grounding and sunlight purposes. That's about it. Just so I don't turn into a troglodyte.
That's it. Yeah. Dear, oh dear.
All right.
Oh, well, anyway, 0 out of 10 there, Brian, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
Build muscle and lose fat on the carnivore diet.